I love to find little intimate photographic opportunities, natural things, man-made things, things that you can get in close to and really look at the detail. But sometimes when I go to shoot them, I find that the background is ugly, or maybe it's just too busy and it's kind of spoiling the image, or maybe it's the foreground that's causing the problem, or even both. Now, one of the things that you can do when you've got that kind of situation for certain subjects and certain scenes is shoot with a shallow depth of field and try to blur out all of the stuff that's distracting from the main subject. I don't shoot shallow depth of field very often, so I thought today I'd just come out and have a play doing nothing but shallow depth of field images. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. A quick bit about the basics then. Depth of field is the distance between the closest point to the camera, that is sharp, and the furthest away point from the camera, that is sharp. It's determined by the focal length that you're using, how far away the point that you're focusing on is, and the size of the aperture that you're using. So if you use a wide angle lens, focus some distance away and use a small aperture, you will have a wide depth of field. And quite often in landscape photography, that's what we go for, back to front sharpness, even going as far as focus stacking to get that sharpness right in the foreground and all the way to infinity. To get a shallower depth of field, you want to be using a longer focal length, focusing closer to the camera and using a larger aperture. So these irrigation channel control wheels are all over the place here because the irrigation channels are all over the place. And I think there's something about the shapes and the textures and even the colours on them that can be quite appealing. And this one that I've got in front of me is one of the upright ones. So the wheel turns, in a vertical orientation. Some of them are horizontal. And the vertical orientation of this, the wheel sort of face onto me, means that the actual subject is quite shallow, so it lends itself very nicely to a shallow depth of field image. The background isn't all that appealing, so being able to blur that out is a good thing. Now I'm somewhat restricted in how close I can get to it. I've kind of checked out the land around this, and I've got to be careful because I don't want to fall down the irrigation channel. But I think there might be an image here worth grabbing, so we're going to give it a go. So I'm going to go for the longest focal length I can to get it all in. What I want to do is have the wheel filling the bottom part of the frame with the screw sticking up, and I really want to blur the background as much as I can. So I'm going to be shooting this at the widest aperture available on this lens at this focal length, which is f6.3. I'm going to bring my ISO up a little bit because I'm going to shoot I'm shooting handheld, and I want to use the screen because I'm shooting at a little bit of an awkward angle. So I'm going to be shooting this at pretty close to 200mm. Focusing on the wheel. Still got to make sure the composition is right. Sometimes something as simple as a fence or a gate can open up all sorts of possibilities if you look at it in the right way. There's a gate here, and on the top of the gate there's these kind of arrowhead shaped pointers sticking up, and then on the gate itself it's kind of the bar that goes across. There's kind of all these sort of patterns of, I don't know if it's some kind of algae, moss, whatever it is growing on there. And again, I'm thinking this might work as, you know, one of these intimate shots, close up, detailed, pulling out the textures and the colours. It's just a case of picking the right sort of, either the right individual arrowhead or maybe a group of 3, something like that. Depends on how I can make it work. And again, blurring out the background, because I mean, I could bend down and shoot it up against the blue sky. I'm still thinking it might be better to shoot it more head on, because shooting it against the blue sky just doesn't seem to work quite as well. Clearly some kind of garden here, and there's flowers growing in here. I was hoping, there's a really nice flower here, I was hoping I could maybe do this one, but unfortunately the flower is growing through a chain link fence, and the distance between the flower and the fence is too tight or too close for me to be able to blur that fence out and make it look good. So I'm going to have a little look and see if there's anything else that kind of grabs me looking through here. Maybe shooting through the fence and blurring the fence to get some detail in something in the background. Can't see anybody about, so I'm assuming nobody's going to complain. There's some quite nice yellow flowers here. There's one kind of through there that I'm hoping I might be able to blur the fence in the foreground sufficient that it doesn't actually appear. We've got a gate, double gate here leading into some lemon groves. The gate's obviously there to stop people from getting in, and it's kind of got a chain wrapped around it and a padlock on. And that quite appeals to me. Now, again, if I shot this as a normal image, the background is probably going to look a bit, there's going to be too much detail in the background. But shallow depth of field, blur out the background, but keep all of the detail in there. I always say when you're out walking you have to keep your eyes peeled. Seeing this little kind of bit of some kind of weed growing here, and there's cobwebs on it. Now not only can I shoot this to blur the background, but also the background's going to be quite a lot darker as well. So again, definitely worth having a go at. Of course, typically the wind started blowing now, but I'll have to wait for it to settle down. I'm going to shoot this again as long a focal length as I can get, and still be able to focus. I've got to be obviously within the minimum focus distance for this lens at the focal length that I'm using. Okay, that's my little walk done, and hopefully a few shallow depth of field images in the bag. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and until next week, bye.